how do you manage a facility? How do you improve the efficiencies? How do you maximize revenue?
Everybody thinks that they're going to be getting Amazon tech returns, and
The economic impact too, when you bring in, that you're having on the small community.
it's a very difficult business. But um, I think what drives us to keep pushing, that's something I'm looking forward to, is being able to find a way to bring impact to the community.
Youth Sports Insider, where passion meets opportunity.
Welcome to another episode of Youth Sports Insider. I am your host, Bill Flitter. Today we have Josh Dickey. He's from Sculpt Sports Complexes in Ohio. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bumper. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that picture behind your head, by the way. What is
That's
that?
that that is the definition of what my biggest vice is in this world, which is I've got a really big shoe problem. So
Okay. Yeah.
what better to have behind me on my day to day than a big Nike shoe.
Yeah. I work with a coach who when we do Zoom meetings together with our group, he is in his shoe room.
Oh yeah.
Shoe room, you caught that right.
Oh yeah.
And it is um temperature controlled, like a
Oh,
wine cellar,
that's
right?
actually that's the first time I've ever heard anybody say that.
Yeah, and they're all in their own, they have all their own little cubbies. And he has a checkout system for his kids and friends to check shoes in and out, but they're all the same, similar sizes. Because I already asked, I'm like, "Do you have a size 12?"
Yeah.
It's like, "No, coach."
No,
I mean,
that's impressive.
it is impressive. It is
Yeah.
one impressive shoe room.
That's that I'd like to think that I have a pretty good collection. I've got I've got the shelves here in my office that house
Yeah.
some of like the ones that are collectibles that don't get worn that I like to
Okay.
just have around here because they are very cool. But yeah, no temperature control for my shoes yet.
I didn't
My
know
kids
that
will
was a
break that
thing
for sure.
until I learned from this guy. So yeah. Well, Josh, tell us about yourself. What is Sculpt Sports Complexes, and how did you get started?
Yeah, of course. So I spent the majority of my career in the sport, like the fitness and athlete performance world. So I've got a background in exercise physiology and kinesiology. I was a basketball player in high school and college. So, sports,
There we go.
fitness, athlete performance was something that I kind of took a love to really early on, when I was playing in middle school and high school. So I just decided, I got to find a way to make a career out of it. So I started a small chain of personal training and athlete performance facilities here in Northeast Ohio. Grew it up to multiple locations, and doing and a lot of work with a lot of some of the local school systems where we ran their strength and conditioning
Mm,
programs. And fortunately, it was a great business. I love doing it. I love the fitness and the athlete performance aspect of everything. But fortunately, I sold that company this past summer, and now I'm able to kind of give all of my focus on Sculpt Sports Complexes. So, which is, that was something that it was, we during COVID. I know a lot of people don't like to necessarily go back to that time, especially if you're in the sports and
trying to forget
fitness
about it, right? Yeah,
industry,
especially if you're in the sport and fitness area.
right?
Absolutely.
It's like
Yeah.
you want to block it out, but but you can't. And so, I kind of, fortunately, I think as an athlete and spending a lot of time in the sports performance world, kind of we saw the writing on the wall where it's like, hey, listen, I think once, everybody's been cooped up for this long period of time, I think once the floodgate opens, I feel like everybody's going to really want to go gung ho into youth sports. And so I launched Sculpt Sports Complexes in 2022, to like halfway through
Mm,
2021. So we're
hmm
a really young company. And now we operate two facilities in the Cleveland area and in the Canton area in Northeast Ohio. So one's called the Courts, and the other one's called the Dome.
Yeah, I like that. Simple, simple
Simple,
names.
simple, simple, simple. Yeah,
That
very
way you can remember them,
self-explanatory.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, very
Exactly.
self-explanatory. Everybody's got their names. The place in the Dome down in Canton is great because it's a 65,000 square foot
Holy
airfield
cow.
sports structure. So it's tucked far enough back off the main road in Canton where it's at. But it just looks like this big. Once you get back there, it looks like this big marshmallow tucked away on 17 acres of grass.
Oh my goodness. Well, we're going to dive into the details uh and the where I want to take this today, because I know there's so many questions that other facility owners have, or people who, we talked off air about, just coaches who have a dream and they want to start a facility, be it a small training facility or something like you guys are doing. So we're going to dive into, how do you manage a facility? How do you improve the efficiencies? How do you maximize revenue? But I'd love to more about the marshmallow. Why that structure and why 17 acres? Because I'm assuming at some point you have dreams of expansion.
I mean, always.
Yeah,
I've always been an entrepreneur. So like the
yeah.
goal is always to try and do something, new and a little bit risky. But the dome was something to where we actually had the courts facility first, it houses two basketball courts and then a few other fitness and sports minded businesses inside there. But um, it was something to where in our area, specifically in Northeast Ohio, and pretty much anywhere, it's really difficult to come by already existing facilities that kind of fit what you would need to run an indoor sports facility.
Yeah.
So the dome it had been around in that Canton area for 19 to 20 years.
Oh,
But it
okay.
was
So it was
it, but
already
it was it
existing.
it was already existing, and it was
Hmm.
something to where it was the property was really well known in the area because it had started out as a swim and tennis club back in the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
And then the family that owned everything just gradually developed the property and kind of evolved everything to where it was just a tennis club, and then they built a dome, and then so when we ended up buying it and turning it into the dome, it was an indoor soccer facility. So it
Okay.
had a full indoor turf soccer field inside there. Um, but for what we do, at SSC is, we focus right now. Our our plan focuses more on hard court,
Okay.
surfaces. So
Hmm.
basketball courts, volleyball courts, things like that. So, I didn't really want to keep the indoor soccer field. I know if there's a lot of if there's turf or soccer or lacrosse people that listen
They're
here, they'll
booing you
that's that.
right now.
Yeah, I listen.
Big
Trust
time.
me. Let me tell you something, man. We got plenty of boos from the local community down there because there's there was when we took it over, all the sports and everything had moved out of it, and it was empty, and it had been vacant for a while before we got it, because we actually got it at an auction, which is
Oh,
it's a really unique way to buy an airfield structure, let me tell you. But there's always a lack of indoor turf space for soccer or baseball or softball or lacrosse
yeah.
or whatever it was. So
Especially in
um,
Ohio. I mean, I'm in California, right? We
yeah, you
can
guys.
we got an outdoor facility for lacrosse and soccer that's, it doesn't matter when it's raining, they'll still play. It doesn't get cold and doesn't snow. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Well, you guys are the gold. Everybody. You have almost perfect weather, and you don't necessarily have to worry about domes, which is great. But you
Yeah,
know, unfortunately, here we only get a few months of that semi lucky weather. So got to come up with some
that's
different
right. Yeah.
solutions. But you know what? The reason why we did it was so where this facility's at, and for people that are for the sports enthusiasts that are out there, we're probably about 10 minutes north of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So,
Oh, okay.
so yeah, so
Yeah.
we're right there in
Yeah.
Canton, and that's obviously that's a huge destination for
Yeah.
football and sports fanatics, and they've built up that into like basically a city. So they've got the Hall of Fame Stadium, they've got the museum, but they also also they have Forever Lawn Stadium, which has got like a dozen outdoor turf fields that can be used for football and lacrosse, and but they also built 100,000 square foot air-filled dome that has a football field inside of it. So my vision was, I'm like, hey, listen, this structure already exists. We want to open another sports facility. There's really no reason to compete with something that's 10 minutes south of us. So we want to convert that into basketball and
Mm.
volleyball courts. And so, we spent the first, 6 months trying to pull people in and run a business on turf there just to generate a little bit, to make sure that we were generating revenue right off the rip, which we did. But the goal was to transform it into a basketball and volleyball facility, and we did that. We're in our second events season with the
Okay.
new courts now. Yeah,
Well, and talk about just like the so okay, so I have this dream, right? This vision. I want to start a basketball training program or a gym and have my own courts and things. Kind of walk me through, just at a high level right now, of some of the things I need to think about.
sure. Well, I mean, I think from a facility standpoint, you ultimately want to look at what the current product that you have. So if you're somebody that's if you want it to be a facility where you're doing instructional things for, are you doing it for your already current clientele? Are you doing it for you're also housing, you're doing skills work, but you also have AAU programs
Hmm.
for boys and girls or whatever it is. You want to look at, you kind of want to look at what your products currently are, and then eventually where you kind of want them to be. And that's a great way to think about what type of facility that you want. So if it's something where you want this specifically for you and your programs and your business and your athletes, then you can look at something where it's like, hey, I don't necessarily need size of facility to be something gigantic to where we can hold basketball and volleyball tournaments. It just needs to be
Hmm.
something that can house the current teams that we have, and something, a place where we can be able to run our own games or whatever. You got to kind of look at what you want your product to be in, specifically, whether it's just for your business and for you to train your athletes and your clients, or you want it to also generate money by hosting events and stuff as well.
Hmm. Yeah. And the I guess what were some of the lessons along the way that you've learned over the years of managing a facility, some of the gotchas or some of the things you didn't, think about going into buying facilities?
Sure. I mean, I think that there's
There's probably
well,
a lot, right?
there is a huge laundry
All right, go
list,
pour
and
yourself a cup of coffee,
yeah, right. Yeah,
settle
pour
in,
yourself a cup of
right?
coffee, settle in. I'll
There'll be a
and
yeah.
everybody just take a long list of notes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because for us from a management standpoint, so I've got to kind of give a little bit of context. I've got one general manager that she runs and oversees the operations for both of our facilities.
Okay.
They're close enough in proximity to where they're about 45-50 minutes apart, so we can have one GM oversee both facilities.
Hmm.
But it's difficult because from a management standpoint, my skills come in managing, fitness and sports performance facilities,
Okay.
which is great. And there's a lot of skills that are transferable from things like that. But you look, our facilities are very different that we have on the sports standpoint. So we've got one facility that is a steel structure and has a steel roof and has hardwood courts, and it's designed completely different from from what a 65,000 square foot dome that we have down there. What that presents unlimited amounts of great things, but also scary opportunities and errors that you have to understand from a management standpoint.
I
So
would imagine. And I want to dive into that since you brought that
oh
up.
yeah, I'll dive
And
as deep as you want,
my
guy.
my stupidity here, okay, just work with me. Air-filled dome. It sounds like what
Yep,
it is. There's a bunch of air
yep,
going through the dome. That air has to be going 24/7, 365. correct?
24/7. That's
And
correct.
if it goes off, the dome collapses. Is that
Yeah,
slowly?
yeah,
Like a little
yes,
bit of a balloon, air gun out of a balloon. If you just hold it slowly, it'll go. Is that
correct.
okay?
That's pretty close. I mean, I think so. The company, Horizon is the company that built the dome down
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
We didn't build the dome. We didn't do
Right.
like it was already
It was
there.
already there. Yeah.
But I think that there's a lot to be said that this is no doubt it's a giant science project, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
something where obviously the quality of the structure and the components and the materials that are being provided that build the dome are super important. So it's completely airtight. So all the emergency exits in there are airtight doors. All of the to be able to get inside the facility, you go through. They are revolving doors. That is how you get into the dome
Okay.
part of the facility. So the good news is that all the air is tucked in there real tight. So for some reason if the blowers ever stopped, knock on wood that we never live to be a part of that.
Yeah.
But it would be a very slow leak. The air would have to come out of maybe some of the really tiny finite
Okay.
areas in the dome
Yeah.
that aren't completely sealed off. So it would be a while before it would completely collapse.
Fascinating. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now, all right. So tell me, remind me again. So the dome has how many courts?
So we've got 4 basketball courts and 6 volleyball courts, and then
So
we've got
those
a
are all
full.
they're separate. So
There's
so
so well
yeah.
they're
Okay.
convertible. So like our four
Oh.
basketball
Uh-huh.
courts can convert into 6 volleyball courts.
Okay. And then
Right.
the other facility, the
We've
courts, is
got
that what you call it?
two. Yeah, we've got two hardwood basketball. Actually, we have two and a half. So we've got two full court hardwood basketball courts, and then we have one half court that we have in there as well.
Okay, so then your job is to you add up all of that inventory, right?
Correct.
And look at it on a weekly and hourly basis to fill it up. So how do you do that? How do you manage that? Are there, specific tools that you use to manage it? I mean, is your job as the CEO trying to bring in tournaments, teams? Kind of walk us through kind
Of
of the day in
course.
the life of Josh filling inventory.
That's it's really it'd be a very scattered day, but no. So um my I what I feel my job is, and we've had, like I said, I'll always provide a smidge of context before I dive into those types
Yeah,
of things. So
please.
I've had other before we had these two big sports complexes. I had two small facilities. So I had like a 10,000 square foot turf facility that we
Hmm.
ran some stuff out of, and then I had an indoor baseball and softball facility that had two indoor dirt baseball fields. Bill, I can't.
Wow, I
I'll
love
send you
it.
when I'm done. I'll send you some pictures so you can see it. It'll blow your mind. It's crazy.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's something that only people in Ohio would be like, oh yeah, this makes sense. But like any place, like with you guys out there, you'd be like,
Yeah.
this is the silliest thing I've ever seen. But so from those two facilities, to what we have now, you know, I always I'm a big hands-on guy. So I want to make sure that, in running a business, I would like to make sure that I kind of know the ins and outs of all the different operations of the facility. So,
Yeah.
for example, I want to make sure I know how to maintain the turf and run the the maintenance and the management of the facilities. I want to make sure that I knew how to maintain the dirt and the temperature control and stuff at the baseball facilities. And same thing for the courts and the dome right now is, I spent a lot of time in the first year, really learning the operational systems of the facilities. And I think that was important. So that way I could, when we go to find our facilities managers and our general managers and stuff like that, we can all, I can teach them how I want them to be, and we can all kind of speak the same language, especially when you're talking from a facility standpoint. Everybody needs to know just enough or as much as possible. So that way those places can operate efficiently and be
Hmm.
safe for the athletes and the customers. So with that being said, I spent a lot of time in the very beginning doing that stuff, as well as where now I spend, most of my time during the day is is developing and bringing in, making sure the business continues to keep coming in and working on contracts with our tournament partners and our partners. That all the teams and people and athletes that are using those facilities on a day in day out basis. So a lot of it is phone calls and emails, and honestly, the one thing is what I love doing most is I'm a visionary guy. So my our day to day staff is day to day, and I'm like 8 to 12 months ahead of everybody, trying to make sure that
Yeah.
they're focused on the season right now, and I'm making sure that we have a full tournament seasons, starting in October, November of 2025. So a lot of it is building the partnerships and the developments with the teams and the relationship side of things. Is where I spend a big chunk of my day.
And across the two facilities, what's staffing like?
So it's pretty unique. So we've got a facilities manager at each location, and
So you have an
they wear
operations manager that sees both of them. Then you have a
correct
facilities manager at both. Okay.
facilities managers at both, and then we
Yeah.
have the facilities managers that wears actually our general manager as well. They wear a lot of hats.
Yes, I'm
So
sure. Yeah.
they're doing they're doing the day to day stuff at these facilities. Changing the courts over to be volleyball courts if we've got volleyball in there that night, and then changing it back if we have basketball, or putting nets out if we have futsal. So they're doing things like that, but they're also organizing any maintenance, with any of our any repairs and things that we have to do that the facilities manager is doing. But then from the bulk of our business is obviously running events during on the weekends, AAU basketball, volleyball, futsal, all sorts of different sports,
Hmm.
and we try to get the local communities involved in working the events. So a lot of the high school and college, a lot of the high school athletes that might be playing in, that might use that, and that's where their sports team trains during the week. They'll come and work for us during the season and help us run, the front, the front desk, or they'll help
Yeah.
us with admissions during tournaments. And down by the dome, fortunately enough, we've got three colleges, that are around Stark County that, we can, we get a great pull for interns from those colleges that can help us. And then as well as people, college kids looking for part-time work. So the turnover of those types of employees are kind of yearly, but so we've got one facilities manager at each place and one GM that oversees all the day-to-day operations.
Hmm. Okay. And then the any tech that you're using that you like or looking into or to help manage any of the processes or fulfillment of the inventory and
Yeah, so I mean, we try to keep it pretty simple,
yeah.
from a tech standpoint. I mean, we've got one master calendar that we use for that to do all the booking stuff.
Yeah.
So we use a platform called Team Up for our cloud-based
Okay.
calendar, which
Yeah.
is pretty easy. And then we use it's obviously it's standardized stuff for all of our rental and our event contracts. So those are just your standard Adobe type stuff where we're doing a
Yeah.
lot of our
Yeah. Yeah.
contracts. But I think where for us specifically, where some of the unique tech that we have is we had a new system put in on the dome that tracks everything that happens inside that facility. So obviously it handles our security and our alarms, but it
Yeah.
also handles all of the environmental systems. So if there's ever a change of pressure within the dome, that tech
Interesting.
lets
Yeah.
us know that there might be an emergency door open, or there's an issue or something, that there's a problem. So that was something that we had installed when we took over that property and that facility. That's been really great. And myself and our general manager and our facilities manager, that all that stuff can be controlled from an app. So it's super helpful when you're dealing with facilities of those sizes, to, for us to be able to do things remotely, because, like we talked in the very beginning, there's times during the day where we don't really, there's nobody there. So you got to be
Right.
able to have
Yeah.
eyes on the facilities as much as possible.
So let's talk about that because that is the one thing that I always hear. You know, you make your money after five and on the weekends. So,
Sure.
uh, you know, 9 to 5, right? Or right from whatever, from
Oh yeah.
9 p.m. the night before till right 5 p.m. The
Yeah. Hopefully
facility is
later.
sitting empty, right, for the most
Yeah.
part. So,
Yeah.
um, how did that keep you up at night? What have you seen, from uh, what some other people are doing to fill that time slot? Because I think everybody has that problem, same problem, no matter where
Everybody,
they are.
it's
Yeah.
agreed. You hit the nail on the head. Is everybody? The good news is everybody has the same problem. So,
Yeah.
it's definitely something that everybody that's in the facilities business is always trying to accomplish. But, for us, we took a little bit more of a unique approach at our courts facility. And that building, we have it laid out to where there are other spaces within the building that we've converted into other businesses
Okay.
that
Like retail
rent this.
space or whatever it might be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
Doctors.
have,
Yeah.
yeah. So we've
Okay.
inside the courts facility, we've got a karate school.
Okay.
We've got a sports performance facility. So there's a sports performance group doing athlete training inside of there. So they have it's like a gym facility. We've got like a beauty and esthetician
Oh, okay. Yeah.
business that's in there. And then just recently, we just finished it, late fall. We put a barber shop in there.
Oh my gosh, I was just gonna say that about someone was telling me they've added a barber shop. So if their
Yes.
kids are practicing also, right, they can go get
There
their
you
hair
go.
cut or oh my gosh, that's brilliant. Yeah, I love that. I love that concept.
And it's been, so we have, the whole purpose is we want, in that building, in the community that it's in, is a Strongsville, Ohio is a great community. It's a
Hmm.
big community, but it's very, very tight knit. It's a really great place, and there's a lot of traffic. So there's a
Okay.
lot going on there. Big school systems. So, when we were trying to figure out, hey, listen, how are we going to fill these spaces? Number one, we want people that have, fairly similar businesses that can kind of go along with being in the sports world. So obviously a karate school was pretty easy. Okay. Um, the sports performance, super easy. It's, they're a great business. They're a multi-location business within Northeast Ohio, that so we're an additional location for them. And it's great because they've got athletes that they're training in there during the day that are probably going to be, they come and train at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they've got basketball or volleyball practice there, later on that night. So that they were a great addition. And then, we had kind of the one space for the barbershop it used to be a dance studio,
Okay.
which is great. And honestly, it's something where it definitely it fit the mold from kind of fitting into our sport, being in the
Yeah.
sports mold. But we really wanted to have some businesses that could almost, I don't want to say give back to the community, but like add some value to not only a business, local business owner, but also, provide a service to the people that, all the people that are coming to our place, whether it's for a practice or a camp or clinic or a tournament. So we said, you know what, let's convert the dance studio into a barber shop. And it just happened to, just the stars aligned, and our general manager's brother happened to be a barber
Oh,
and wanted to go
perfect.
out on his own. And we're like, hey, listen, man,
Yeah.
we've got a great space. And so, it's so there's a little bit of an investment to turn it into that. It wasn't something crazy, but now it's great. And it's his own business, and he's got 6 barbershop chairs in there, and
Hmm.
it's packed. It's packed every weekend from tournaments. And same thing with like the beauty and esthetician business that's in there. a lot of the moms or girls, all the services that she offered. So dialing back to your question of monetizing those off hours in
Yeah.
that facility specifically, they're all paying us rent every month.
Right.
So we've
Right.
got a guaranteed number coming to us
Yeah, it
every
makes
month,
sense.
which actually works out really great.
Yeah.
So we've been able to monetize really well on that facility by doing that.
So what I'm hearing you say though, going back to my dream of having a facility, I don't have that dream, but but
Right.
let's assume I do, right? I have this dream of opening a facility. So a couple things I've heard from you is make sure that if you're opening a facility, obviously have traffic or have it be a destination of some sort that's drawing people to that particular area. Surround yourself
Correct.
by maybe the colleges or metropolitan area, something where obviously you're going to have people to fill it. So that's one. Two is think of additional revenue streams outside of maybe the sports that are maybe, like the barbershop is great. It's servicing the same customer, right? It's servicing the moms and dads that are dropping their kids off for the tournaments or practice in at night. And
Right.
that way you have this kind of steady stream of income. Did I, if I, is that a good summary of,
It's a perfect, yeah.
okay.
It's a perfect summary. It's
Yeah,
location, location, location means a lot in these
yeah,
facilities. And make sure that think about it. You got to find ways to make sure that your business is making money because
right.
would love to be playing sports all day, but there's always going to be a gap
School gets
place
in the way,
where
right? They're in,
school gets in the way, and it's
ah,
in
joke. I
there's a
love school.
we
Kids
can
in
kind of we can kind of dive into we've actually created some really unique customers to fill those daytime hours at some of these places. So it's like I said, it's some of it is trial and error, but those
Yeah. Like
you've
for
got it
example, what have you done to fill some of the
so
daytime hours?
it's great. So like we'll start with the dome facility first
Yeah.
is so because we have a full indoor rubberized track that goes around all the
Okay.
courts.
Oh,
So that's great. And again, being in Ohio, track and field
yeah.
is something where those athletes want to find a way, they would like a way to train all year round,
Yeah.
but most of them don't want to go outside when it's 5 degrees out. So, and like I said before, we've got a handful of colleges and universities that are in Canton and around Canton. So we were able to connect with those colleges and universities and talk to their head track and field coaches and say, hey, listen, this, you guys can during the day here, places open. So, those colleges and universities, that's where they do all their, their wintertime and off season training on the track
Hmm.
inside the dome. So they're not necessarily filling the courts, but they're filling the facility,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
great. So we've been able to, like I said, that was something really unique that we were able to get people in the door during off hours because it's really the track goes around the courts, and these are college athletes. So having them come and do training, at that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock time slot when there's tons of traffic coming in and off the courts. You
Yeah.
got guys running 100-meter sprints that weigh 200 pounds. I'm trying to not have a human car crash in a
Right.
place
Right.
like
Right.
that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And then, at the courts, we obviously we wanted to originally our goal was like, hey, listen, pickleball, like everybody else.
Right.
It's like, hey, listen, buy the pickleball courts, buy the nets, buy the material, and build the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come scenario. But before we could even get the pickleball, we were approached by a couple local groups that run badminton leagues.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that now. That's also a big sport. Even here, yeah.
It's crazy,
Yeah.
and it just blew up. And so
Really?
now they're using all the hours where we've got, and I'm not, this is not a joke. We've got badminton groups that start at 5:30 in the morning.
I love it. That's
And
awesome.
so they now that
Yeah.
it doesn't fill your full 9 to 4, but they take up till your 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning.
That's still 3 hours, right? That you're filling
It's three
inventory.
hours.
So, yeah.
They're every day. They're very consistent. They're very easy customers to deal with.
Yeah.
But then we've also the local schools around there. I don't know how it is in your guys's area, but there's just not enough. There's so many schools. There's so many between private and public schools, and so many kids that want to play the sports. There's just not enough gym time to
Yeah.
go around
Yeah.
at the schools. So we've done a really great job. Our team's done a really great job of developing relationships with the local public and private schools there, to where we've got middle school and high school boys and basketball groups starting at 2:30 every day during
Okay,
the
that
during the off
early.
season
Okay.
time. So
Yeah,
they're
that's
coming
good.
right from
Yeah.
school, and
Yeah.
and they're close. They're right down the school. They're right down the street from the courts facility there. So they come right after school, change in the locker rooms or the bathrooms there, and then they start practice.
Yeah.
So we've definitely found we've done a great job of filling those odd hours at the courts facility, and we're still trying to piece together groups and stuff like that to do it down at the dome facility.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, and again, that's always key is filling those extra hours in. And again, to add to our list of things as a facility owner is creating those relationships with the schools and the different clubs and mainly schools that can fill maybe that 2:30 to 5. I know in our area to fill a gym from 5 to 9, 9:30 is not going to be a problem. But
Right.
but the 2:30 to 5, you're going to have to create some relationships with the local schools and things. And then the badminton and the other extracurricular for maybe the adults and senior citizens in your neighborhood to have something there to again you might not close it from, but you're going to close the gap a little bit and fill
Right.
some of those odd hours. And so you just have to, I guess you just have to be scrappy and just be innovative and think through ideas. Yeah, I love
Oh
it.
yeah. And from a usage standpoint, there's during the day you also want to make sure that there's a chunk of those hours where you need the facilities to be empty, because you still have
It's
the
true.
maintenance
Yeah,
and the cleaning
it's
and the
true.
trans and transferring the
Right.
courts to make getting volleyball nets up, which when not as much at the courts, because we can get 4 volleyball courts at the courts, but with if you have to set up 6 volleyball net systems like how we do at the dome, because most groups that are coming in are using 6 nets.
Hmm.
So that takes time. So like there's definitely, you want to make sure that there's those couple hours in the day that you can kind of check off those housekeeping items that you need to as well. So that's, like I said, scheduling that, making sure that you have the time for that is important too.
So I talked to a local facility owner, and a brand new facility it was an empty. It's actually an empty office building with very high ceilings. So I'm assuming it was supposed to be a warehouse of some sort, but then there was a hospital group that came in there, left, and so they have this big shell. Okay, so he started a brand new facility. Uh, he's got 5 courts, set up shooting machines. And the one thing he kind of joked about, but was serious, was he goes, the number one thing that I focused on in this facility, the bathrooms.
Oh yeah,
And he said
100%.
when he would rent out gyms all around the Bay Area for his tournament. So now he
Okay.
bought this facility, now he's going to do it there. But he said the bathrooms were always an issue. Whatever the issue might be, they were locked, they were dirty, they were awful, whatever, right? So he says, when I build my facility, I'm going to build state-of-the-art bathrooms. Boy, did he build state-of-the-art bathrooms.
Yeah,
It's
and it's
actually like a 5-star hotel bathroom, 2 big bathrooms in his, I don't know how many stalls or anything, but they're huge and they're
yeah.
beautiful, well lit. I mean, they're amazing. It was a big deal.
That's honestly a great topic and a great point, because it's something where when you're in the facilities business and
Hmm.
you're in the youth sports events business, the coaches and the athletes, that's those are essentially, and in the events, those are the easy things. They're coming there to, the kids are coming there to play sports. Most of
Right.
them don't necessarily care what all the amenities look like,
No.
but but you remember, you what we've always said is, you are we're in the people business,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
even more
Hmm.
uh, particular than that, we're in the parents business. And I don't know how it is out there, but here, that's a very dangerous business to be in. Very dangerous.
Uh,
So, it's something where but when you sit back and I can look at it from a few angles because I've got
mm,
young kids that are in travel basketball and travel baseball, so I get to be on the coach and the parent side as well as the business owner and the facility owner side.
yeah.
So, but when you really look at it from a bird's eye view, you're asking a lot from these parents. So you're like, all right, hey, listen, you probably had to drive 30 minutes to an hour to get here. You are probably hungry. You are definitely have to have a place to go to the bathroom. By the way, we're asking you to pay somewhere between $10 and $20 a head to get inside this event.
That's right. Yep.
So, you know, those are the things where and don't get it twisted. It's never going to be perfect. You could have,
Oh
I mean,
no,
I'm sure,
no.
I'm sure the guy with the 5-star bathrooms he probably has great reviews, but they'll always find something to
Oh yeah.
complain about, it's perfectly fine. That's just human
Yeah.
nature.
Right.
But you do have to make sure that you are, yes, that's for anybody that's open that wants to have these facilities, those things really matter. And when you have people walking out of there saying, hey, listen, that was a really nice experience. Um, and hey, the food there were a lot of food options. It was a great experience from a spectator standpoint. We would definitely go back to an event there, and that has a dollar sign on it. So like when you decide next year, hey, listen, we charge $10 a person to get in this event. Next year, we're going to charge $13 a head. If you've crossed those T's and dotted the I's, then people aren't going to bat an eye to
Yeah.
spend an extra $3 on their kids' sporting events.
Yeah.
So those things are really, really important when it comes to finding ways to create a great experience at your facility. And then also when it comes from the monetization and the revenue side of things, that's you'll make more money if you give a good experience.
So I think, and speaking of money, what's obvious is you have your court rental fees, and and so if a big tournament comes in on the weekend, they're just renting the court space, and right, they're taking it all, right? I'm gonna be right,
Hmm.
okay. So then let's talk about the snack shack, right?
Yeah.
Are you managing the snack shack? So you
Oh yeah.
manage this, okay. So you manage the snack shack. So that's additional revenue stream for you on top of the court rentals and the better the food, you
Right.
have, right? Okay, so that's great. What other ways are you monetizing the facility outside the court rentals, the food? Are there additional ways? And we talked about the retail space on the outside. What else are you doing, if
Yeah,
anything?
so we look at it. So the way that we look at how we're going to generate revenue yet every year. So we have, like you mentioned, our court rentals, which are
Yeah.
those are essentially your Monday through Fridays. So your those are
Okay.
your those are your teams and your clubs that are renting those facilities for their practices, whatever it may be.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's one scenario. And then from an event scenario, we've got it to where there's a usage fee, so there's a rental fee for the event, and then we generate revenue from our food and beverage. And then depending on what type of event is being run there, we also generate revenue from gate fees, so admissions into the events and into the facilities.
Oh, so
So
you're
that's
collected so let's talk about a tournament in that scenario. So
sure.
tournament, are you sharing revenue into the facility or is it 100% you or maybe it varies?
Yeah, so it varies a little bit. So a great example for us. So at the Dome, we've got 6 volleyball courts down there, and we're the only 6-court volleyball facility in the vicinity.
Okay.
So everybody wants to run their volleyball tournaments at our facility because it's
Okay.
it's bigger. It can hold a ton of people. It's well laid out for our spectators and for people to move around the facility. And volleyball, at volleyball events, those girls are camped out all day, or boys are there camped out
Right.
all day.
Yeah.
So you got to have space for people to be. So at an event like that, for volleyball, we have a lot more leverage. So the tournament director and the group will come in, and they'll pay their event fee for the rental for the weekend,
Okay.
and then we take 100% of the food and beverage revenue, and then depending on the group, we usually take anywhere from 100% to from 20 to 100% of the gate fees, just because we can offer so much more as a facility. So they can bring in more teams, they can charge a little bit more money, so they can the teams and the programs and people running the events can make more money by being able to have more teams off their tournament fees, which so that means that they're okay with us taking a
Okay.
bigger
I see.
portion of the gate fees.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that's and we've you talk about learning lessons from a management standpoint. We learned a lot in our first season, especially down at the Dome, on on how hectic a tournament season is for us in running events at those facilities. And there's things that when we set our rental fee for courts,
Yeah.
you don't realize how much destruction happens in
I
a
would
2 day
imagine.
period at a volleyball tournament.
Yeah.
So when we got through the first season, we're like, man, we really got our butts kicked.
Yeah.
We got to sit down and we got to look at this from a better angle of how we can make sure that, number one, we keep creating a good experience for the customer and the athletes, but also we have to find a way that we can kind of offset some of these losses, because we got a larger cleaning bill, the trash removal, those types of things really add up, during those
Mm.
during those 2 day events. So now, when there's a different fee, to where, like, if you just want to come in with your basketball team and you want to rent 2 courts at the Dome, it's $55 an hour per court.
Okay.
Where if you're going to run an event there, you have to rent out the whole facility, and
Okay.
there is an event rental fee,
Got
which
it.
for
Okay.
us as a team, we cooked in our what it costs for us to be able to make sure that we have our cleaning crew can come 3 or 4 times throughout the weekend to make sure bathrooms are clean, and make sure that we can
Right.
make sure we have extra deliveries for this, and make sure that we can have
Makes
extra
sense.
pickups for trash, from the dumpsters and things like that. So this year it was a lot easier, where it's like, hey, it's a flat fee. It's $400 an hour for the facility to be able to run an event there. And now we can have our cleaning crews there, and we learned a lot from our mistakes last year that we were able to fix this year, so we could generate more revenue from every single tournament, which has been really great.
Interesting. Okay, that totally makes sense then, the way you
Yeah,
explained that. Thanks for breaking that down. Because typically out here, at least, so if I wanted to rent a gym or a sports complex with 6 courts on it, I would just pay the court rental fee, whatever that is. And uh, it's shockingly, the price isn't too far. It's not that different, which
hey, that's
kind of
pretty
surprises
good.
me.
That's
You know,
pretty
I was
good.
thinking you were gonna
Don't let the
say it
don't let
was,
those don't let those people hear you talk now. They'll probably increase their prices.
dang, I know. We'll turn this off for the Bay Area. We won't put
Yeah,
the,
just block that out.
block it out. Yeah. But anyway, okay, that's helpful. So, kind of the last question here is just kind of looking ahead. You're running these facilities, and you're an entrepreneur, you're a visionary. Think about 3 to 5 years out. What does it look like? Like maybe some emerging trends you're seeing in youth sports, from a facility standpoint, right?
Sure.
And
It's
you know
really,
what? You can't be wrong, right? Because you
no, I can't. Yeah, that's
it's
honestly,
like,
I spend a tremendous amount of my day thinking, like, where are we going to go?
yeah.
What else can we do? When I look at it, it's a really difficult industry to grow in, because, like, to kind of piggyback on the things that you have said earlier, everybody wants to have one.
Mhm.
So and it goes the same as every person that we talk to wants to invest in one. Everybody wants to Oh, I want to. I'm interested. If you're ever looking to raise money to do more, you let me know.
Okay, I'm
And
glad
like
because
for
that's the
me,
exact
yeah,
same conversations. Yeah, okay, good. Yep.
right. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like
Yeah.
you as an entrepreneur, and you hear somebody say that, you're like licking your chops. You're like,
Right. Yeah.
yes, I got this. This is we're gonna do. We're gonna make it.
Yeah.
And and we get, you know, you bring them to an event and they see this place is packed and they see there's money being taken at the gate and there's money being exchanged at the food and beverage at the concession stands, and they see they think just dollar signs are rolling there. And so, but when you break down the business and you show what you want to do, and then you show how it makes money in the returns, they're like, well, that's not very fast. So it's what we're realizing is like everybody thinks that they're going to be getting Amazon tech returns, and
Yeah,
it's an
it's not.
organic business, and
Right.
it has to be done on the private side. It has to be done right, and it's expensive, and your overhead is gigantic, and it's a very difficult business. But um, I think what drives us to keep pushing and try and find new ways to keep growing is that speaking as not only a business owner but also as a dad who has kids that are dedicated in playing sports, is you got to be able you want to be able to have quality places continue to exist for these
Yeah.
programs to be able to run. And I think that the eras of where a lot of these tournaments and these events are being run at your local school systems, I think those days are diminishing, and I think that there's going to be a lot more. There's going to be a lot more that's going to put the pressure on these private facilities in the municipalities around the country that are opening these big sports complexes. That's where these places are going to go. So I think for us, as where we see ourselves is, we're right now we're looking at, we want to continue to keep providing, indoor facilities to run events for, not only our local communities, but also, the regional people that want to come in and run, tournaments and events for their programs. Um, but I think in order for us, I think some of the visions that we have looking at moving forward is, I think we've seen some opportunity to be a part of some bigger organizations, to
Hmm.
help us grow, and be able to deploy the resources for us to, whether they're make enhancements on our current properties and
Yeah.
facilities,
Yeah.
or like we talked about, we've got 17 acres of land down in probably one of the hottest sports beds in Northeast Ohio in Canton. And I would love to be able to turn that into a sports campus,
Hmm.
where there's
Yeah.
multiple facilities that can be used, on a local and a regional, even a national level. So, my goal right now is being able to look at what's the best, what's the best road for us to take as a business, whether we continue to try and operate as an organic small business that own a couple facilities, or we try to raise, some significant capital and kind of make some of those really big pipe dreams exist, or we look at becoming a piece of a bigger pie, where our management team and our facilities and our events can add value to a bigger business, so we can kind of contribute to the industry in a way like that. So that's kind of where we're at the crossroads of what we look at over the next, 2 to 3 to 4 years is, what's going to be best for the business and the sports industry and around here, and our team to be able to continue to grow.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Right now is the time to be looking at those things. There's a lot of money being poured at youth sports. There's a lot of consolidation, right?
Oh
In
yeah,
youth sports right now, teams getting consolidated, facilities getting consolidated, right? So if there was ever a time, right, to, you have,
oh yeah.
or just to even to invest and build into a bigger complex. So you're at the, I think it's the perfect timing to just, moving forward and picking one of those
Yep.
options. And the one thing we didn't, I said this was my last question, but when you were talking about, I'm
Fire away,
sorry,
guy.
the economic impact too, when you bring in, that you're having on the small community around the facilities is really important. So are you building relationships with the cities and the townships that you're in?
Yeah, I think we're still kind of navigating those waters of how can we help impact the local communities. I think it's at our plate, the plate, because our the areas that we have, one is towards Cleveland, so it's in,
Yeah.
is northern, northern northeast Ohio, and the other one's in, in Canton, which is is obviously further south. And both areas are very highly populated, and they have a lot that people have access to when they come to these events. Um, but I think for right now, we've just started to kind of break the surface
Yeah.
of adding economic impact to the areas where, last year we were fortunate enough to be able to host a regional cheer and dance competition at the Dome,
Oh,
and
cool.
that was something where people came from all over the country. So
Nice.
yes, so we've built we've got the relationships we've got our hotel provider, we've got some partnerships with local restaurants and business owners where we can kind of direct people to when they're here staying for 1 or 2 nights. So we're getting, we're building those relationships, and we're starting to get a couple events that do that. But that's something I'm looking forward to, is being able to find a way to bring impact to the communities where where these facilities are, because there's thousands of people that are coming through there on the weekends for these
Yeah.
events. And I think we're new enough as a business and as sports facilities. I mean, when you think about it, the company's only been around for a few years, and the facilities, like the Dome, we've only had these courts. We're in our second, kind of event
Right.
season. So that
True.
property and that facility down there has been known as an abandoned, dilapidated soccer facility for so long that right now we're just, we're still trying to spin our wheels and get the
Yeah.
community saying, hey, listen, we've breathed some life into this property and into this complex, and now everybody is realizing that it's coming to life, and they're all coming to events there, and they're consistently there every weekend now for volleyball or basketball. So I think we're taking all the right steps to be able to make an impact in the community. We just have to keep our heads down, and keep kind of grinding away and make sure that people have positive experiences when they come there.
Yeah, and I think that, yeah, no, you're right on. That's right. You guys are, you're pretty new, and you'll figure that part out.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Josh, this has been absolutely amazing. I appreciate your time today and
of course.
answering all of my questions. And I wish you nothing but the best in, changing the face of youth sports in your area and having that impact that I know that we talked about. So thank you. Thanks for your time.
No, thanks for having me. Anytime we can talk facilities and youth sports, I look forward to it. It's something that we're super passionate about. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to spend some time with you today.
Awesome. And stay tuned for more amazing interviews coming up on the show.
No, I look forward to it. We'll tune in. Hopefully we gave some learning points to some people who have the dream of opening up their own facilities. Hopefully it didn't scare anybody away.
No, it was perfect. I think they're going to learn a lot from what you guys have already been doing. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.